let me first ask Manish Tiwari this question. Manish, why should former speakers, get these privileges? What kind of message does it send that, you have to place this extra burden on the exchequer for, getting a chauffeur-driven car, a house, and all the paraphernalia that comes with it?
Well, Nidhi, if you were to expand the ambit of that question, you can legitimately also then ask that why should former presidents, former vice presidents, former prime ministers, then be entitled to these facilities? And the answer is very clear that if people who've held, august offices, who've served the country, who've been active in the public domain, if at all after their retirement, the state decides to provide them, with the minimal wherewithal, which I think the former speaker, Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, was explaining in great detail, do you think that the nation should really be grudging it?
But do you think it's necessary either? And actually, you've asked an interesting question. I mean, should even our former presidents and prime ministers get the kind of benefits that they do? Look at the president who landed herself in controversy only recently over her house in Pune.
Well, that's essentially what I'm saying, that once you have decided that certain people who have held very important and august offices under the Constitution of India, are to be provided with a minimum wherewithal, after they demit office, then legitimately, since the speaker was excluded from that category because the vice president is also the chairperson of the Council of States, it is logical that it may just be extended to them also. And as Mr. Somnath Chatterjee was saying, that it is not that he and Mr. Sangma, are really in a crying need, that these facilities should be extended. But then I guess propriety demands that if you're doing it for the rest, for somebody who has presided over the lower house, which reflects the will of the sovereign, if at all you decide to make that gesture, I don't think we should really grudge it, misunderstand it, and make an issue out of it.
Let me get first reactions. Mr. K.C. Singh, let me ask you first. Mr. Sangma's daughter is actually a minister in this government. So if he wants to, he can, stay with his daughter at her bungalow in Delhi. He doesn't need a separate house for himself, right?
Absolutely correct. I think what happens is this goes on expanding. Manish is right. Why single out the speakers? I think it has to start right at the top. The house in Delhi for the president began when I was with Rashtrapati Bhavan. Gyaniji got it. He was the first one to get it. The justification was because there was terrorism in Punjab, he couldn't live there. Which US president lives in Washington? The minute you're finished, you vacate the stage, you go and retire. If you go on giving houses like this, allotting to former people holding constitutional positions today, there'll be no houses left in Delhi. And I think there's a justification why retired people shouldn't be bumping into those who are today occupying positions, and they should really retire. You take Britain. The British speaker, once he assumes the post, resigns from the party. Now, we don't have these conventions because people will come back into politics and they'll be utilizing the same office for politicking again. And there, once you retire, you are ramped up to the House of Lords. And that's it. So there are certain conventions. Pension is understandable. You see the president's accommodation. It begins with a house in Delhi, type 8, because it had to be the biggest house.
Former MPs actually have pretty good benefits, even just as MPs. They're pretty good.
Then it overrules the 4,000 square feet or the 2,000 square feet, which the Act provided for. And then it gets extended to Pune, where even 2 acres is not enough. 5 acres are needed, because 2 acres was not considered complete. So if you go on extending it, there is no limit to it. And I think people holding these positions, the minute you demit office, you are a commoner and you better accept it. I think the people of India want that.
Okay, Nalin, quick comment from you before
I have a couple of
back
comments to make. I think the first comment I'd like to make is that, I think if you're talking about extending it, while Manish has gone upwards to the president and the vice president, I think you can go downwards, because then even governors are constitutional position holders and there's no end to it. And if you look at it in reality, a speaker is a member of parliament and therefore is entitled to benefits, including pension, medical care, absolutely. Whereas governors are entitled to nothing. They're entitled to, and we have an ex-governor, you could ask him, he's only entitled to probably only health, which which was added recently. Second part is this, that you have to look at it in a context. You know, you can't exclude constitutional positions and just start saying that, you know, it's up here, you're extending the thing. Third is it's in context of when you're talking of in a scenario where you've got high inflation, you've got a government which is spending so much of money, screaming about the fiscal deficit, and then going for retrospection taxation, which has implications on investment in the country, and you're talking about, you know, foreign trips where 49 crores is the budget and you're spending almost 500 crores, then, you know, you start looking at it, where are you going to draw the line in terms of fiscal prudence? So I think it's not about only the issue of, you know, this August office, it then needs to be extended down the way, and then it can go to states, because you've got speakers of the states. Once you're setting conventions,
Manish, do you want to take that very quickly? Where does this stop? And does this send out the wrong message at a time like this when the economy is in the shape that it's in?
Well, Nidhi, Nalin talked about it going down to the states, but if you actually go down to the states, and that's a problem, and no pun intended, with a lot of people who live in Delhi. You know, in the states, these facilities are extended to former chief ministers, you know, to other constitutional functionaries. Look at the case of Uttar Pradesh.
But not all
Look
states.
at the case of Uttar Pradesh, where all the former chief ministers, are entitled to government accommodation.
But it's an exception,
I can also
Manish.
point out various other states, Nalin. So therefore, if at all, you know, if at all, you are going to make it an issue of propriety, yes, you know, you can possibly debate it, you know, you can curtail the short list or eliminate it altogether.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news, and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.